Joe Biden's office says that the former U.S. president has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. The finding came after the 82-year-old reported urinary symptoms, which led doctors to discover a nodule on his prostate. Mr. Biden was diagnosed with prostate cancer on Friday, with the cancer cells having spread to the bone. While aboard Air Force One, Vice President J.D. Vance spoke to reporters about the former president's diagnosis, saying, quote, "We really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job."
We wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job. Okay.
Mr. Biden's office said that this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, but the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. Andrew Donaldson from OrdinaryTimes.com has more on the diagnosis.
The diagnosis itself is very serious when you have a man of advanced age and you have a cancer that has spread to the bone. That is very bad news. And Joe Biden, the man, whatever you think of anything else, is a horrible diagnosis for him and his family. And our thoughts and prayers are with him. Now, the timeline of Joe Biden, the former president, is what made this story so explosive all throughout his presidency and up into the debate that ended his political career for all practical purposes. And he lost the election, where he had that disastrous cognitive episode on national TV during the debate. The debate over his fitness as president has just boiled over all of this. Now, the whispers were before that because he was the oldest president at the time we had ever had, and there was all kinds of things, including now something that will be endlessly picked apart. He had a misspeak at the time. That's what it was called, when he actually said, "I have cancer," and said, no, he just misspoke. He had one of his Biden moments. All the little things of that over the last few years are now going to be called into question. Now, we don't have access to his actual medical records, but a lot of people have very fair and very skeptical questions over the health of this president in the last year or so of his presidency. Going back to Watergate, and what our national media covering the presidency has always seen as their lodestar is the national media brought down Richard Nixon. What did they know and when did they know it? And that's what they were going to play ball all over this story, except we know for a fact they didn't. Now, you have things like the Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson book out here saying, well, the media was lied to, but Jake Tapper was a moderator on one of those debates. The idea that the entire media, especially the media that is friendly to President Joe Biden at the time, didn't know about this or didn't have some kind of inkling that things were not going well, kind of strains credulity. And that's what's firing up this controversy so much, is you have a very Trump-friendly media that is going to be all over this story. You have a media that now didn't do what did they know and when did they know it, because they are now a part of this story of how they covered the president. Underneath all this, you have a national populace that is looking at a midterm election and still rehashing the last one. And you have a Democratic Party who should be in a position to do well in those midterm elections, but is now saddled with, did you cover for Joe Biden, which is a story that should have been settled when the American people rendered their verdict of no, Joe Biden is not fit to be president in the election. This is a lot of cross streams that has a very human story that everybody can relate to underneath it. An elderly family member that has cancer, almost everybody's had one of those, but the politics of this story is going to keep it going for a very long time. We did not get clarity with this announcement. We got more questions, and we probably got a lot of answers we may never get, but the political cycle is going to go forward, and people are going to speculate, and it's Joe Biden and his team's own fault why that speculation is going to be so rampant.